The glass of expensive wine slipped from Richard King's hand and shattered on the marble floor. "What did you just say?" he asked, his voice trembling with anger. His daughter, Sophia, stood in front of him, holding the hand of a young man in a simple shirt. "I said I'm marrying Daniel," she replied. "I love him, Dad." The entire dining room fell silent. Richard stared at Daniel from head to toe. This man, a mechanic? "Dad, please, be quiet," Richard shouted, slamming his fist on the table. "I built an empire worth billions, and this is the man you want to bring into my family?" Daniel stepped forward. "Sir, I may not be rich, but I love your daughter." Richard laughed bitterly. "Love? Love doesn't pay bills. Love doesn't build companies. You want my daughter because of my money." "No," Daniel said firmly. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "Dad, you're wrong." Richard pointed toward the door. "If you walk out of this house with him, don't ever come back." The room became painfully quiet. "Dad," Sophia whispered, "you have a choice. My family and my wealth, or this poor man." Sophia looked at Daniel and then back at her father. "I choose him." Richard's face turned red. "Then from today, I no longer have a daughter." Sophia burst into tears. "Please don't do this. Get out." She stood frozen. "I said get out of my house." Holding Daniel's hand tightly, she walked toward the door. She turned around one last time. "I hope one day you'll understand that money isn't everything." The door closed behind her. Richard sat down and said coldly, "She'll be back in a month." But she never came back. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and comment. Money isn't everything. Years passed. Sophia and Daniel lived in a small apartment. Life was hard. Some nights they had only bread and tea for dinner. One evening, Daniel looked at Sophia and said, "I'm sorry. You gave up everything because of me." She smiled. "I didn't lose anything. I gained a husband who loves me." Daniel hugged her tightly. "You deserve a better life. We'll build one together." Little by little, things changed. Daniel opened a small garage. Sophia worked as a nurse. They saved every penny. Then they had a daughter named Emma. The tiny apartment became filled with laughter. Meanwhile, Richard's empire was beginning to crack. His business partners betrayed him. Several companies went bankrupt. The people who once called him friend slowly disappeared. One evening, he sat alone in his huge mansion. The dining table that once hosted grand parties was empty. He looked at an old family photo. Sophia's smiling face stared back at him. He quickly put the picture away. "No," he whispered. She made her choice. But for the first time in years, he missed her. A few months later, Richard attended a business meeting. Suddenly, he grabbed his chest. Pain shot through his body. He collapsed onto the floor. "Mr. King!" someone shouted. Everything went dark. When he opened his eyes again, he was in a hospital. A doctor spoke softly. "You suffered a severe heart attack." Richard tried to sit up. "Where are my partners?" No one answered. "Call my friends." The nurse lowered her eyes. "No one has come." Richard looked around the room. For the first time in his life, he was completely alone. Then the door opened. A doctor walked in while reading a file. She suddenly froze. The file slipped from her hand. "Dad?" Richard's eyes widened. "Sophia?" Tears filled her eyes. Neither of them spoke. Finally, Richard whispered, "You work here?" She nodded. "I'm one of the senior doctors." He stared at her in disbelief. The daughter he called a failure had become a respected doctor. "You became a doctor?" "I did." Silence filled the room. Then he looked away. "I suppose you're here to laugh at me." Sophia looked shocked. "Laugh at you? You must be happy seeing me like this." She slowly walked closer. "Dad, you're still my father." Those words pierced his heart. At that moment, the door opened again. A little girl ran inside. "Mummy," Sophia smiled. "Emma, slow down." The little girl stopped when she saw Richard. "Who's that?" Sophia looked at her father. "This is your grandfather." The old billionaire froze. "Grandfather?" Emma walked closer. "Are you sick?" He nodded. She reached into her pocket and handed him a piece of candy. "This always makes me feel better." Richard's hands trembled. Nobody had shown him kindness in years. "Thank you," he whispered. She smiled. "You're welcome." The little girl hugged him. Tears instantly formed in his eyes. He had missed so much. A daughter, a son-in-law, a granddaughter, all because of pride. If this story is touching your heart, take a moment to like the video and comment. Forgiveness changes everything. Over the next few days, Sophia visited him constantly. She checked his medication. She made sure he ate. She even stayed after her shifts ended. Finally, one evening, Richard could not hold it in anymore. "Why are you doing this?" Sophia looked confused. "What do you mean? After everything I did to you, why are you still here?" She sat beside his bed. "Because you're my father." He lowered his head. "I was cruel to you." She said nothing. "I chose money over my own daughter." Tears rolled down his cheeks. "I thought wealth could buy happiness." Sophia gently held his hand. "Dad, I missed your wedding." He began to cry. "I missed the day my granddaughter was born." His voice broke. "I lost years I can never get back." Sophia's own tears fell. "I wanted you there too." He looked at her. "You did. Every birthday, every Christmas, I hoped you'd call." The old man covered his face. "I'm sorry." Years of pain poured out of him. "I'm so sorry, Sophia." She hugged him tightly. "I forgive you." He cried like a child. A few minutes later, Daniel walked into the room. Richard looked at him. The young mechanic smiled politely. "How are you feeling, sir?" Richard stood up slowly. "I owe you an apology too." Daniel looked surprised. "I judged you because you were poor." He wiped his tears. "But you're richer than I ever was." Daniel frowned. "I don't understand. You have love. You have family. I had money and lost everything." Daniel smiled gently. "We can still be a family." Those words broke the last wall around Richard's heart. Months later, he fully recovered. The mansion that once felt empty was now filled with laughter. Emma ran through the halls. Sophia and Daniel visited every weekend. One evening, Richard looked at his family sitting around the dinner table. For the first time in many years, he felt truly wealthy. He raised his glass. "I spent my whole life chasing money and nearly lost the people who mattered most." He looked at his daughter. "Thank you for saving my life." Sophia smiled. "You saved it yourself, Dad. You opened your heart." Richard nodded. And for the first time in years, the billionaire felt richer than ever before, because he finally understood something money could never buy: family. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and comment. Family is the greatest wealth. See you in the next story.